Kommen wir zu unserem nächsten Vortragenden, nämlich Brian J. Smith. Brian J. Smith leitete Innovationen für die Kommunikations- und Medienbranche von Accenture weltweit mit Schwerpunkt auf Metaverse, Web3 und der Zukunft des Internets. Mit seinem Vortrag The Metaverse, The Dawn of a New Travel Age zeigt er auf, was das Metaverse machen wird und vor allem, wie es sich auch auf die Zukunft des Reisens auswirken könnte. Meine Damen und Herren, wir freuen uns auf Brian J. Smith. Oder auch nicht?
So let's have a look here at what some of the tech leaders in the world are saying around the metaverse and also what the value may be. Because there's lots of headline articles, there's a lot of hype. And I think there's a lot of people trying to decipher, is this real? Is this genuinely a thing? Or is it actually just hype right now? So Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, has talked about metaverse. And he says, I can't overstate how much of a breakthrough it is. And I like the way he phrased it, that it's not only going to transform how the world, but actually how we participate in it, because it's an active process. And we're going to talk about that. It's very different to the internet as we know it today. Steve Jobs in Apple is equally excited, talking about augmented reality being one of those profound technologies and a real breakthrough. So there's a lot of excitement around what Apple will do in this space in the next 12 to 24 months. And then there's a myriad of reports here. You may have seen some around the value of the metaverse and what it might mean for the economy and the world. Goldman Sachs had an interesting one, and they talked about up to 1/3 of the digital economy as it exists today. So if you think about your bookings.com and your travel websites and your online purchases, up to 1/3 of that could migrate to the metaverse in the next 5 years. And with the digital market continuing to grow, that could be a 12.5 trillion opportunity for the world. So I think that's the sort of baseline, and that's what's driving a lot of the interest and excitement amongst the clients that we're speaking to. So let's have a look at some specific examples here, not travel related, but just more broadly, what are companies doing in the metaverse today? So if any of you are into gaming, you may be playing on Roblox, or if any of you have kids, no doubt they've asked for your credit card so they can buy lots of digital goods in Roblox. Nikeland have created a space about 8 months ago inside Roblox, and already there's been close to 8 million visitors from over 220 countries that have gone into this world. You know, Nike's goal is to turn sport and play into a lifestyle, and they can do this in a virtual way. You can also try on virtual trainers, and you can play games with your friends and earn points and rewards. Foo Fighters, after the Super Bowl this year, played a metaverse concert on Meta's Horizon Venues platform. So this was a virtual concert that people all around the world could join. And the interesting thing about the metaverse is that it's social. So it's not just about, you know, a passive, like looking at a concert on a kind of traditional 2D screen. It's the fact that you can actually do that in a social way with your friends who may be in the room with you or at various parts all over the world. So you can join together virtually as groups. And think about that for the travel industry. And we'll go into that a little bit more, but the ability potentially to connect and go on travel experiences with your friends who may be in different countries and different cities, all from the comfort of your seat. There's also a big industrial application in the metaverse. So digital twins, the likes of NVIDIA Omniverse platform, BMW created 3 of their factories as digital twins to optimize the production line. And they found they could build then the actual factories 30% faster as a result of this optimization. So there's a huge amount of value to be gained by looking at the actual digital twins. How do you stress test scenarios? Virtual training is a big area. So Bank of America have actually trained 50,000 of their employees. Right behind me here, this background is actually a virtual space that we use in Accenture called One Accenture Park. And we've taken 150,000 of our new joiners over the last 12 months through this virtual new joiner onboarding experience and space. Colleagues connecting with each other from all over the world, exploring spaces to learn about Accenture, our culture, our ways of working, to connect with one another. So the training side is really exciting part. Then if you look at the NFT world, Dolce & Gabbana and the fashion brands are very active in terms of launching non-fungible tokens into marketplaces linked to their goods. So how do you actually bring your brand alive inside these marketplaces? And then finally, Soul, you may have heard about this. Soul are actually investing $3 billion to create the first metaverse city. So what they want to do is recreate the historical sites inside of the city, inside of the metaverse, but also enable their citizens to contact the public officials through the metaverse. So they're going to have civil servants who are avatars that you can complain if your water is cut off. So let's move on and look at the signals actually driving this right now in the market. So the 3 big areas that are driving the adoption of metaverse are, one is we're living online. We're spending a lot more time online. I'm online here today in the metaverse in Dublin, speaking to you in Vienna. The average adult in the US and the UK today is spending more than 12 hours a day in front of a screen. And that's continuously increasing. You know, we've seen the popularity of Zoom and apps like this accelerated throughout the pandemic. We're also seeing forecasted increased spending on new devices, so on VR, on AR devices. And there's a really exciting proposition of and portfolio of new launches coming up from some of the big names. Sony with their PlayStation launching a new VR device. Meta have a roadmap up to 2028. Google are launching a new device in the next 12 months, as are Microsoft with a new HoloLens, and everyone's waiting to see what Apple will do. So all these new devices, again, will drive adoption. The Meta Quest 2 device was actually the #1 app in Apple's App Store at Christmas time and has already sold 8 million devices. Social gaming is the other big driver here. So fusing the social element of shared experiences also with gamification. And the astonishing thing to consider is that almost half of the world's population are gaming today. So it's really gone mainstream, and you can see explosive growth every year in this space. The one thing that really struck me, back to Roblox and the platform there, is there's 2.5 billion messages sent every day on the Roblox platform. And the third big trend is digital commerce. So people spending online, but not just spending online on physical goods and services, actually buying digital goods and services, which I think is super interesting. If we consider what happened during the pandemic, what Airbnb did around their experiences, I know lots of people who are attending cookery classes with, a chef in Sri Lanka from their home to understand how to cook this food. So they're beginning to buy digital experiences or experiences online. Also recently, digital goods. So I talked about NFTs. Last year, $25 billion were spent on NFTs. There was 4,000 spent on a Gucci handbag in Roblox, which is actually more expensive than the actual handbag in reality. And the other big driver here as well is digital currencies and cryptocurrencies. So today, about 1/3 of US adults aged under 30 own cryptocurrencies. And that's, despite the current challenges in that market right now, that's continuing to grow and grow. And it will explode in the next 5 years as regulation begins to come in and as it becomes more mainstream. So the future of the internet, the metaverse, it's worthwhile looking back. Where do we come from? So Web 1 was the internet of data. And this was sites like Wikipedia that provided you with, information. It was fairly static, not very interactive. In the 2000s, then we had the internet of people. And this is when we really started to connect with one another. It was the era of Facebook, of Twitter, of Snapchat, the social web. In the 2010s, we started making all the devices in our homes and in our businesses very smart. So we call this the Internet of Things. And the world started to become connected, not just humans, but also objects. And all of this has led to the evolution of where we are today, the next evolution of the internet, which is the metaverse, and Web3, which is the internet of place and the internet of ownership. So there's new elements of ownership in Web3, there's blockchain architecture driving much of this. And there's also this internet of place, this sense of space. Like this world behind me, when you're in this world, you have a real sense of space. So we have a definition in Accenture because there's, I think, still a lot of confusion around what the metaverse actually is. And what we say is that it's an evolution of the internet. I think that's the big takeaway. If you don't remember anything else from today, I think understanding that the metaverse is the next generation of the internet. So when you consider how the internet has transformed the travel industry, the metaverse is primed to shape it and travel and shift it even more. But we're early and it's a long-term trend. This is a 10-year trend. It enables us to move beyond browsing to participating. That's the other big takeaway. So while the web today is primarily a passive activity, I can scroll or doom scroll on my Twitter feed and see what the news is. I can engage or participate if I want to, but I don't have to. When you're in the metaverse and when you're in these 3D worlds and spaces, whether it's through a headset or on a laptop or on a phone, people are walking up to you, they're talking to you, they're engaging with you. So it's much more participative. And we're in this shared experience that links the real world to the virtual world and in between. So today with the internet, we predominantly have an offline world that we live and an offline personality, and then we have our online personality, which is the wonderful life that we all live on Instagram. In the metaverse, it's really more a merging of those two worlds together. And as the technology improves, there's going to be that difference between your online persona or your offline persona will begin to merge. So we see it as a continuum. I talked about it being this 10-year trend, and we're early on this trend. So this is continuously evolving. Not all the use cases are understood. Not all the potential benefits are realized. If we consider the internet in the mid-90s, no one would have considered the impact it would have had on the travel industry. If we were to look equally at social, when Facebook was founded in 2004, in 2005, I don't think anyone would have said we need to have a Facebook page for our business, or we need to have a presence on Twitter to engage and connect with our customers. We're at an equal inflection point here. And the metaverse will transform not just the consumer world, but how we work and how you run your businesses and enterprises. So for those of you who have workforces and employ people, the metaverse will change that experience. It's going to change the physical world in terms of reality, but also the virtual world. And it's about this seamless shift from 2D into 3D. And it really is the confluence of these technologies that have been talked about. So if you've attended tech conferences and travel conferences for the last number of years, you've probably heard about the role of artificial intelligence or extended reality or blockchain or edge networks that the telecommunications industry is building out. And whilst there was excitement about each of these technologies, in and of themselves, the value they provided was not necessarily transformational. The transformational element is with the convergence of these technologies as these merge together in the same way that the iPhone brought together so many services like maps, like email, like a telephone, like a music player. That was the power that the iPhone and the smartphone brought to the world. We're at a similar point now. It's the confluence and convergence of these technologies that really makes it powerful. And we're evolving. So just worthwhile briefly touching on, there are two types of metaverse. So there's a centralized worlds and platforms, which are a walled garden approach, and there's a decentralized platforms. So the centralized platforms are like Roblox, which I talked about, and Fortnite. Again, if any of you have kids, they're probably spending a lot of time and a lot of your money playing these games. These worlds require platform approval. So if you want to do something inside these spaces, you need permission. If you're a business and you want to set up like a Nike Land, you need to work with that. And they're companies, so they have a CEO and they have a board. They have in-game currencies and they sell digital goods. The decentralized metaverse operates in a very different manner. And this is often more linked to what we would term Web3 and blockchain architecture. So there's no platform approval required. You can go and do whatever you want in your space, as long as you've bought a cryptocurrency to enable you to do that in the space. And you also need to have a digital wallet, like a MetaMask, to enable you to buy goods. And you can buy NFTs in these worlds and spaces. So there's two sort of different worlds right now, and both are continuing to evolve. At some point, people talk about this one singular metaverse where everything is interoperable. So if you buy your Gucci handbag in Roblox, you can take it to another platform. Let's see how that evolves in the coming years. So let's jump into what you're really here for, to understand what does the metaverse mean for the travel industry. And it will be a transformational impact. And we believe strongly that the companies and businesses that start considering today what to do in this space will have a strategic advantage. So that's what I encourage you all to do, is hopefully after today, start thinking about, how could I begin to take those first steps, if you haven't already, to move my business into the metaverse? So let's look at how it impacts the aspects of the travel industry. So the first is how you interact with customers. So there's new channels, there's new ways of engaging with customers, there's new ways of appearing to customers. Your staff could be avatars. It's also changing how work is performed. So if you think about the services and products that you offer in your industry, whether it's tours, whether it's accommodation services, whether it's transport services, how you actually perform that work will evolve. And we'll jump into some examples. Also, what products and services you offer. So there's probably metaverse extension of your existing products and services. So if you think of everything that you offer as a business today, you can kind of think of potentially how that might operate in the metaverse. The really exciting opportunity is how you can develop new products and services and build new communities. Because remember, the metaverse is social, and it's about connecting people together. It will change how you distribute your products. There's new business models emerging here. Like, we've talked in the business world about direct to consumer offerings for many, many years. Now at Metaverse, we're talking about direct to avatar. People are buying virtual trainers. Nike bought Artifact, a NFT virtual trainer company, so they could start selling virtual versions of their shoes. I know some of the Scottish whiskey makers are now selling rare Scottish whiskey. Not only do you get the actual whiskey, but you also get an NFT, a digital version of the whiskey, which will have a lifespan beyond the physical one, which you may drink at some point. And then finally, it will also change how you run and operate your business. So we talked about Accenture with One Accenture Park behind me, and how we're transforming our new joiner onboarding, our training process for hundreds of thousands of new joiners every year. Equally, this will have a transformative impact in terms of how you run. And again, we're going to look at some examples in that space. So we did some research, and what we found was that 53% of travel executives that we interviewed, and we interviewed hundreds of travel executives from across the world as part of a survey earlier on this year. And 53% say that the metaverse will have a positive impact on their organizations, which is interesting, because 53% you could say is relatively high, but you could probably also say that it could be higher, and maybe there's some skepticism there, or maybe there's some concern there. Does the metaverse potentially cannibalize your existing business? If I can virtually go on holidays and sip cocktails on the beach from my couch with my friends, why do I need to hop on a plane and travel and book a hotel? I don't necessarily believe that. I believe we should look at this in the same way that the internet or travel documentaries on TV. People don't substitute their holidays by saying, well, I don't need to travel now because I've seen a documentary on TV. In fact, if anything, this will drive adoption for meaningful in-world experiences, but it's a powerful new channel to bring to life your product and offering. More optimistically, probably 1/4 of the executives believe that metaverse will have a transformational impact. And I think even over the next 12 months, we're going to see a lot of developments in the travel industry on the topic of metaverse. There's been a number of reports that have looked at the value specifically for the travel industry in metaverse. And what we're seeing here is incremental revenues of 188 billion over the next 5 years. And this market is growing at 26% per annum. So it's high growth, and there's a lot of money being invested into this. Now let's jump into our 5 examples. So the first one is Millennium Hotels and Resorts. They're the first hospitality group to actually open a hotel in the metaverse. And you can see it there. It's called M Social, and it's in Decentraland, which is one of the decentralized versions of the metaverse. They provide a range of services there. So there's avatar concierges that will bring you on a virtual tour of the hotel. There's an opportunity to actually unlock and win real world hotel surprises. There's an opportunity to book the hotel. So it's going to link to the website. And there's going to be special events held inside this space to mark occasions like Valentine's Day, New Year's Day, and those type of events. And again, it's a social space. So if you're thinking about booking a hotel, you may go and you check it out, what the atmosphere, what the vibe is like inside their space in Decentraland. It's a great way of product discovery as well, because you may be in Decentraland anyway, and you come across this hotel and it starts this brand building that starts really resonating. We talked about Nike earlier on with the 7 to 8 million visitors inside of their Roblox platform. The second area, which is already transforming the meeting and events industry, is looking at technologies like extended reality. So we've partnered with the IHG group and specifically with the Intercontinental Hotel in LA to build a AR app that was focused on event planning. So historically, when you're going to a hotel to book an event, you may get a walking tour of the space. You may get a series of brochures that describe the different room layouts, the different options. But it can be hard and difficult to picture that. Also, for the hotel, it can be difficult to upsell on experiential components because often what is being demonstrated is just an empty room, like the top photograph there. But if you actually empower and enable the customer to build their own virtual meeting and event space, imagine weddings, imagine the different tiers of design, of products, of services, the floral arrangements, the ribbons on the chair, all of those additions that you could build. So you could actually create your own bespoke layout and book it all in a cart in one journey. So very, very powerful. What we found was that it was a faster, more efficient booking process. There was a shorter sales cycle as well, because the customer could immediately see what they're going to be getting in a virtual way. There was reduced booking costs. There's less staff required to go through and explain everything because customer could physically see it themselves. It increased and boosted the room bookings. It also improved brand affinity. So people started to perceive IHG and the hotel here as really innovative because the other hotel down the street was not offering the service. And overall, it drove increased revenue. So I think you see the applications of these type of events can really be transformative in the business world, whether you're organizing a conference, whether it's a meeting, an event, a wedding, a family gathering, the ability to customize and optimize and build these experiences, bespoke design is really, really powerful for the industry. Next is a very recent news story that you may have come across, and this is Emirates made a big announcement just about 3 weeks ago around what they're going to do in the metaverse, how they're going to build new business, both from an NFT perspective, so there's tokenization, and also building metaverse experiences. So they talked about signature brand experiences, selecting a seat, doing that potentially virtually. And again, virtual does not necessarily mean you need a headset. I think that's one of the big things to make super clear is that the metaverse is not just about kind of strapping a computer to your head. You can access the metaverse and 3D worlds and 3D experiences on 2D screens, like the phone that we showed in the last example at IHG hotels, where the room setup can be done on your phone or tablet or laptop, where you're getting this 3D immersive world. So they're launching these experiences where you can select your seat. So actually, in terms of upgrade, you can really experience the difference between coach and between, economy and premium economy and business and first. Bring those experiences and those offerings to life. You can shop for duty free inside a virtual store. And you can also explore hotel rooms. They're going to start minting then collectible NFTs. So perhaps for special occasions, for anniversaries, they'll create unique tokens that will hold a value. They're also going to change the pavilion at the Expo 2020 to be basically a center for innovation focused on Web3 and the metaverse. And they've been, experimenting in the space for a number of years, launching a cabin experience in 2017 for the first time. And UAE in general is really firing on all cylinders for Web3 and the metaverse. And the regulatory authority there has actually set up a virtual regulatory authority office and space in the Sandbox, which is another decentralized metaverse world. So really exciting stuff from Emirates, thinking about the in-flight experience, booking virtual tours, experiences for your holidays, even looking at the flight tracker, what that might look like, how you could potentially zoom in and have a view of the pilot, what they see in the cockpit. Really exciting potential there. The other example is the Rijksmuseum and virtual museums in general. So we're seeing, through Google Arts and Culture, they've teamed up with 1,200 museums around the world to build actually virtual tours and galleries. And this is really bringing art and culture mainstream in a much more immersive way. And it's increasing accessibility. That's the exciting thing. So there's many people who would not be able to, for a myriad of reasons, tour or visit these museums. This is now bringing them to the world. And then the final example here is transforming the world of work. So the workplace. Talked about the Accenture example. In the hotel industry, number of big hotel chains are looking at how to use this to attract, retain staff. So MGM Resorts in the US are actually enables candidates to try out a job in VR. So we talked about the Great Resignation. I know actually attracting and retaining talent in the industry is a big challenge right now. New technology like this can help. It can differentiate the brand, it can increase employee engagement and reduce attrition. It also helps, with empathy. So how to deal with difficult customers. You can actually create those scenarios in VR. And the way our brains work and think in 3D, it's much more immersive and much more memorable. So we retain our retention for what we see in a 3D and VR training is much, much higher than what we do on a sort of 2D screen. So that means increased proficiency. Okay, so 3 ways to get started here in the space. The first is to learn. So immerse yourself and engage your teams in the metaverse. Try this out yourself. Set up a MetaMask, buy an NFT, spend a little bit of time on Roblox or Decentraland, or ask your kids about it. Really important to kind of understand these new worlds and spaces. Then think about defining your strategy. So how are you going to bring your brand into the metaverse? And then finally, how do you create? How do you build this branded experience? What world do you do it in? How do you do it? How can you bring it to life for your customer? It could be an AR experience on a mobile app. It could be a way to bring the local attractions beside your hotel to life. It could be your, in-flight experience or your cabin. But how can you really bring that? It could be your city, your town, municipality. How can you bring all of that offers to life in a much more immersive way? And then finally, I would say the way to start really here is to think big. It's to start small, and it's to scale fast. So have a grand, big ambition, but start small. This is a 10-year trend, as we talked about. There's going to be a lot of evolution here, and then focus on scaling that, where you're seeing traction, where you're seeing success. And then just to wrap, I just wanted to quote a US poet, Amanda Gorman, who spoke at Biden's inauguration, you may recall. And she released a poem last year on Instagram. And I love this line from it. She said, "Let us not return to what was normal, but reach towards what is next." There's a new world as we come on the back of COVID for the travel industry. We're at an inflection point for the next generation of the internet. And I'm really excited about it. Thank you very much.